So hello, we have here Eric Reiss. He's the CEO of the Fat Ducks Group. So how's it going so far?
Well, it's wonderful. I'm delighted to be back in Tallinn. I haven't been here for a couple of years. I had the honor of presenting in 2016 over at the university. I'm just amazed at the quality of the talks and the fact that the organizers have gotten 600 people to come and spend a Friday here at this amazing venue. It's really been an exciting day.
So could you please elaborate a bit about your own talk about the Information 4.0 and maybe just give the people around here a bit of a different perspective or more details if you can?
One of the problems that I've seen for years and years and years is that users don't necessarily have a shared frame of reference with the people who have designed something. And I see this as being a major usability problem. Either the description of a product isn't very good, or there are details that are missing, or the photographs are kind of useless. For example, I live in Denmark, and we have 3 letters that are not on a standard American keyboard. Now, some of the designers move the little arrow keys up and they make the shift key on the right smaller so that they can fit in the Danish keys. Well, if you're a touch typist, you're going to make all kinds of mistakes. But there's nowhere on the web where you can actually see a Danish keyboard, so I need to go to someplace where I can physically see the unit because I do not have that shared frame of reference. This is a very basic thing, and you can say, well, this is kind of an unusual problem, but it happens just all the time. Somebody wants to buy a new smartphone, or they're going to change their call package, but they do a lot of traveling. You know, how many gigabytes of data do I actually have within the EU? They're very basic questions that don't necessarily get answered. And so I wanted to explain to the audience today, this is something that has always been a problem. It's not necessarily going away. And it's going to become even more important when we start talking about Information 4.0, which is basically saying we're going to take, content chunks and cut them up into smaller chunks so that we can reuse them in different ways. Well, that's fine, but who's going to be reusing them? The machines. And if the machines don't have the metadata, if they don't understand the proper context for these chunks, then we're going to get into all kinds of problems. So the idea was to tell that story.
I mean, it's interesting now that user experience has evolved and we're acquiring much more information and data and we're kind of making use of it. But what do you think the future holds in this realm? Like, are we going in the right direction, or what's going to happen in the near future?
In the right direction with regard to user experience? I think that the problem with user experience is that there's still too many people that think that this is something that strictly happens in the digital world. That's not true at all. I mean, user experience has always been around. It maybe wasn't called user experience, but the story I always like is from the New Testament. It's about Jesus turning 6 vats of water into wine at the wedding in Cana. And if you talk to the evangelists, they'll say, but he did this to show his disciples that he was the true Messiah. And so that's fine. But you don't think they drank the wine at the wedding? I mean, this is user experience. It changes names, and I think that the user experience community has generally not been very good at communicating the broader vision of user experience. It's still very much focused on digital aspects. There are far too many buzzwords. I think the business community has a hard time trying to figure out what is this actually going to give my business. I know happy customers buy more. I get that. But what are you actually going to do? And I don't think that the community has communicated it very well. Personally, I think that user experience is the sum impression left after a series of interactions. And they can be interactions between people, machines, or events. An event, for example, it's really cold in Tallinn today? Well, I can't stop it from being cold, but I can wear proper clothing. So if we're going to design user experience, there are 4 things we need to think about. We coordinate the interactions we can coordinate. We acknowledge interactions we can't control, like the weather in Tallinn. We reduce negative interactions. I brought a warm coat with me. And we acknowledge the journey between interactions. This is also where things often go wrong. We're trying to get a boarding pass for an airline, but because we're flying outside of Schengen, suddenly it wants our passport number. And by the time we find the passport, we've been timed out and we can start this all over again. So that journey wasn't considered by the designers who said, you click on this screen and then you enter your passport number and then you do that and then we'll give you a boarding pass. It looks very sensible in that kind of a layout, but in real life, it doesn't work that way. And you can chart all this out in just on a little graph and say, look, this is stuff that's important for the business. This is stuff we can control. This is stuff we can't control. This is stuff that is important for the business. This is stuff that it doesn't matter. If we're not focusing on that quadrant that says, this is something that we can do something about and actually means something for the business, well, then we're not really doing UX, and we're certainly not providing the value that we should be providing to whoever has hired us to do the job.
Are there any other comments that you'd like to make about the conference, or how did you find it so far? Like, what do you think? Like, any additional thoughts or comments about what's going on?
No, I really don't. There's going to be an after party, and we've got more talks this afternoon. It's really been a wonderful experience, and you weren't here, so now you get to watch the video. But you need to come next year because this is a terrific event.
Thank you so much for your valuable thoughts and opinions. It was really nice seeing you, and hopefully to see you soon again here.
Thank you. You're very kind. I look forward to coming back.
Thank you.